Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Lieutenant Todd Buss from the Roundford Fire Territory, and you're listening to the SA Matters radio show with Dr. Rich Gassaway. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming and trying to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello and welcome to episode 68 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The SA Matters mission is simple: to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. If you've experienced or witnessed a near miss, and would like to have a platform to share your lessons learned with others, please contact me by visiting the SAMatters.com website and clicking on the Contact Us link on the top of the homepage. Have you ever thought about this? Your lessons learned from a close call could save someone else's life. Think about that for a moment. If you want to share your experience, contact me. I'm coming to you today from Wadesville, Indiana, where I'm in town to deliver a one-day Mental Management of Emergencies program. But I'm actually in Indiana for 2 weeks, because last week I taught a full-week company officer development program for the Gary, Indiana Fire Department. And thank you, Chief Bradley and Chief Walker, for the confidence in my message and inviting me back for the second time to deliver this important officer skill development program. And then next week, I'm going to be in Crawfordsville, Indiana, delivering the same week-long company officer development program. I'm excited because the program next week, well, I guess I should say this week, because we'll be on day 2 of the program by the time this podcast airs, is my 20th offering of the week-long Company Officer Development Institute program. I'm so honored for these opportunities from the departments that have invited me back over and over again to help develop their next generation leaders. If you're a company officer, aspiring company officer, or chief officer, wondering if this program might be right for your department, the best way I can explain what we do in a full week is there's no BS, no theory, and get this, no PowerPoint. That's right, for the whole week, no PowerPoint. We focus on the skills to help develop company officers to be successful and to help keep problems out of the chief's office. Teaching problem prevention and problem resolution at the company level. It's the officer development program I wish I'd have had before I was vaulted into a company officer position. I wasn't ready, so I did the best I knew how. In the process, I created more problems than I solved, and I made existing problems worse. It was a disaster. Did I learn? Oh yeah, I learned. But at what a cost. I destroyed friendships and relationships and alienated myself from others, and it didn't need to happen. If only I had been taught the skills to succeed before I needed them. What a concept, huh? If you're interested in hosting a company officer development program, they can range from 1 day to a full week. Head over to the SAMatters.com website. Click on the Contact Me link. Sorry for that little rant about leadership, as it's not really the focus of the mission of this show, but I still have a passion for helping company officers be successful. I guess it's my way of trying to amend all the mistakes that I made along the way when I was a company officer. Anyhow, let's get into the feature segment of today's show as we discuss how to teach decision making. During the Mental Management of Emergencies program, we talk about the process for how to develop and maintain situational awareness. And then we talk about how to use situational awareness as the foundation for good decision making. Discussions revolve around how we train first responders, which requires training of both cognitive and kinesthetic skills. In other words, information and muscle movement. Stated another way, teaching what and why we need to know something, the cognitive, and the how to do it, the kinesthetic. However, on the drill ground, some instructors seemingly bypass the cognitive and focus almost entirely on the kinesthetic. It's easy to understand why this happens, with the majority of explanations revolving around limited, precious time on the drill ground. This is understandable, but it's not acceptable. For teaching decision making does not add substantial time to the hands-on evolutions, so long as the instructor has spent some time in the classroom teaching the foundations of decision making. The drill ground becomes the closest thing to real-life practice that a firefighter or fire officer can experience. Teaching decision making in the context of the real environment is a critical skill that must be practiced. If you spend time reading the NIOSH line of duty death reports and incidents where firefighters die at residential structure fires, you'll see a theme that commonly what contributes to it are flashovers and building collapse. Certainly those are not the only ways that a firefighter can die in the act of firefighting at a residential dwelling fire, but they rank high enough to be concerned about how to make sure that firefighters understand that they might be entering an environment that is ripe for a flashover or ripe for structural collapse. As you read the NIOSH reports, you often see implications or contributing factors of firefighters who did not conduct a proper 360-degree size-up. This is something we have a discussion about during my classes, as I show a video of an incident where things don't go well, and it's clearly evident that the firefighters involved had not conducted a proper 360-degree size-up. We engaged in some discussions about why this happened. Why would firefighters, over and over again, just read the NIOSH reports, not conduct a 360-degree size-up? Some of the easy, low-hanging fruit answers are that the house may have been built on steep terrain, unable to get around, a tall fence with a gate that's locked that they could not get through, Rottweiler in the backyard that they couldn't get into the backyard because the dog was vicious, deep snow, couldn't make their way around. Once we exhaust all the physical impediments preventing the possibility of a 360 size up, then we start talking about some of the human factors, like the firefighters may have been under a sense of urgency, a pending rescue, or they knew what they had because they could see it from the street side, and there was no time to waste doing a 360 size up when they knew they could just go through the front door and take care of the problem. As we have these discussions, one of the things that I like to do is to get somebody who's in the class, who's been involved in recent live fire training at a burn building facility, and ask them some questions. So the questions usually go something like this. When you were there with your crew, especially like if I have a company officer, when you were there with your crew and you were getting ready to go in, and the instructor lit up the fire inside of the burn building, who made the decision about whether your crew would go in or not go in? Now, the answer to this question usually revolves around one of two possible answers. One, the fire officer made the decision to go in, or two, the fire instructor made the decision to go in. In the latter, the fire instructor comes to the door, sees that the crew is ready to go in, confirms that they're ready, tells them the fire is lit, and then tells them to go. Or, probably more often, go, 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 yelling at them. And that's okay, getting that excitement level up, inoculating them from stress by adding stress is not a bad thing unto itself, but it's the decision of who made the go or no-go call in the burn environment, in the training environment. Sometimes the officers will say they made the decision, the officer, not the instructor. Clearly, the officer was in charge of the crew and made the decision to go or no go. When the officers tell me that they made the decision, the next thing I ask the officers are, on what criteria did you make the go or no go decision? What did you assess or evaluate to help you to make the decision to go? This usually results in a kind of a blank stare kind of look from the officer. And often they say, well, the criteria was that the instructor came to the door and said the fire was ready and it was time to go, so we went. Oh, I ask. Then, well, what would you assess at a real fire before you went in? Before you made your go decision? Say it's not the burn building, it's the real fire. Then what would you assess? Well, then the answers flow more freely. And I hear things like smoke and fire conditions, and building construction, and consideration for how the building has been decomposing under the stress of fire, and alternate means of egress and ingress. And I said, well, how do you gather all that information? And they say, well, I do a 360-degree size up around the structure before we make entry. And I say, oh, okay. Did you do that at the burn building, in the training environment, before you made the decision to go in? Did you conduct that same kind of assessment prior to your entry? Again, the blank look on the face. And the answer is almost always no. I didn't do a 360-degree size up of the burn building. That then gets me to ask the next question. What was the burn building made out of? Typically the answer is concrete or steel. And I say, when you went into the burn building environment, you were there training all day, did you have any concern that the building was going to fall down and kill you? The burn building? I usually get another blank look with an answer of no. Why would I be concerned about that? It's a concrete building made to be burned in, or it's a steel container made to be burned in. Why would I have any concern about it falling down around me? And then I ask the question, if you were at a real structure fire, would you have a concern that that building might fall down while you're inside? Well, of course I would have that concern. So you're telling me you'd have that concern at a real fire, but all the while when you're learning how to fight a fire and how to make the decisions of go or no go, the thought of building collapse is nowhere on your radar. It's not realistic to think that we could train with one mindset and then at a fire scene then apply a different mindset. That kind of logic just isn't how the brain functions. We're far more likely to do in the real world as we do in training, and think in the real world environment based on how we've thought in our training. This type of training, teaching the process of decision making in the real world environment that we're going to face is called context dependent learning. Teaching the process of decision making in the same environment that you have to make the real decisions in. Then comes the next question. Was your decision to go or no go ever no go in the training environment? Again, I get another blank look. No go? At the burn building? No. We went in every time. Oh, I asked. So what you're telling me is in the burn building environment, the decision that you made is to go every time. You never got to assess the conditions that allowed you to possibly make a no-go decision. Be that concerns for structural collapse or concerns for flashover. Usually gathering that information during a 360 size-up, which you admit you did not do, would have set you up to make a better decision. But you just kind of skipped all those steps. And when the instructor came and opened the front door, you were ready to go in and attack the fire. Practice the kinesthetic skill set of firefighting, skipping the cognitive skill set of decision making. At this point, I start to get some squirms in the room and some concerned looks on people's faces. And I often get asked, well, if we have a burn building environment, it's never going to fall down. So if we're going to do a 360 size up of a concrete or steel building, wouldn't we just be wasting our time because we're not really seeing a building that is showing any signs of stress anyhow? And that is true. And if there were concern about flashover, if we're doing a 360-degree walk around the burn building, we're probably never going to see the smoke conditions or the fire conditions that would indicate that a flashover is going to happen because we're never going to create those in the training environment, right? I say that is true. But we can simulate both of those things and in the process, trick the brain. Trick the brain? The question usually comes. Yes, trick the brain. You see, the brain is not very good at distinguishing fact from vividly imagined fiction. How would we trick the brain? How could we ever get somebody at a burn building environment to see something other than a concrete burn building? Oh, it's really not that hard. All you'd really have to do is just show them a photograph of a house with ordinary construction. Maybe even a house on fire, showing smoke and fire conditions indicating the potential pending flashover. Show them a fire, well-involved house. Show them the picture and say, now, would you go into this environment? Now we get them the chance to make decisions. Maybe it's a well-involved fire. They'd say, no, I wouldn't go in. Then you might challenge them by saying, but what if there's a victim inside? No, I still wouldn't go in. What if there was a child inside? You see, these aren't easy decisions. But these are the decisions better taught on a drill ground than a lesson learned at a real fire. Talking through and teaching how to make the really tough decisions. You see, at every fire there are windows of opportunity. Windows of opportunity to save lives, windows of opportunity to save property. And sometimes those windows of opportunity have closed before we arrive. And if the windows of opportunity have closed, the decision should be clearly no go. But that's not how we train. We train go, go, go. Every time it's go. Now, if you look up in the dictionary the definition of a decision is a choice among alternatives To be able to make a decision, you have to have at least two choices. Go or no go are the decision choices. But in training, is it ever no go? Do we ever make the decision not to go in based on criteria that we have observed in our size up, gathering the clues and cues that form the situational awareness that becomes the foundation for decision making? Now, I said you could use a photograph, but even better yet is to use simulation. With an iPad and a $49 piece of software, you could create a simulation taking pictures of houses in your own community, ordinary construction houses, and impose smoke and fire conditions onto those houses, and then show those simulations to the company officer, and you can show them all four sides as they walk around the burn building and say, now, as you walk around the burn building, you're not looking at a burn building anymore. You're looking at this simulation of this house on fire, assessing smoke conditions, color, volume, velocity, density, fire conditions, color, volume, velocity, density, building construction and decomposition, all the things that you're not going to see at that concrete burn building with the pallets and hay burning, or even worse yet, propane. I'm not dissing propane, but you just don't see smoke conditions with propane, that being the lesson there. So you get the firefighter, the fire officer, to walk all four sides, looking at the simulation, looking at the smoke and fire conditions, the building construction, the decomposition, assessing the speed at which conditions are changing, and then making the most critical decision: can we change this outcome? We want to, we train to, but we're not always able to. In the burn building environment, we're always able to. We always make entry and knock the fire down. That's a Hollywood ending to fire attack drills. If only we could get the fire to behave the way we train, everything would be fine. We need to teach company officers how to make decisions. And we as instructors have to stop making the decisions for them and teach them how to make their own informed decisions. And on the drill ground, sometimes those decisions are going to be no-go decisions. And then to go along with that, we have to teach company officers how to tell their crew that it's no-go. Not just talk about telling a crew no-go, but actually practicing the skill set of making the no-go decision and communicating that, practicing it, communicating that to the crew. A crew told no-go is usually a pretty unhappy crew, especially if there's the potential for a rescue. In fact, I've had crews say, when they were told no-go, that they defied the order and went anyhow. We need to teach the crew how to accept the no-go decision as well. Now, when those crews make their entry into the burn building environment, I ask the officer, what size hose line did you take into the burn building environment? The answer is almost always 1.5 or 1.75 line. And I say, what did you take in the second time? Same thing. Third time, same thing. Fourth time, same thing. Then I ask the question that seems to be the obvious. On the ground outside the burn building, was there just one hose line, 1.75 inches? Or was there a 2.5 as a alternative? The answer is often there was only 1.75 line on the ground. I said, oh, so you really didn't have a decision to make. The only line for you to take in was the 1.75. There wasn't even the option for a 2.5-inch line. Bringing you back to the definition of a decision is a choice among alternatives. If a company officer has no alternative, the 1.75 line is the only line on the ground, there's no decision to be made. They pick up the 1.75 line and they make the entry. And then we know in the burn building environment, they're always rewarded with successful outcomes. Doing this in repetition creates cognitive and muscle memory and develops habits that become automatic performance under stress. No thought required. Arrive on the scene, skip the 360 size up, take the 1.75 line, and go, go, go. There's a better way. We need to teach firefighters and company officers how to make decisions, how to be critical thinkers, and how to be resilient problem solvers. Before I close out today's episode, I want to take a moment to thank the departments and organizations that have hosted recent Situational Awareness Matters tour stops. Your efforts to bring these valuable and powerful training programs on situational awareness and high-risk, high-consequence decision-making to your members and others in your region are greatly appreciated. I'd like to thank the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association for allowing me to present at your conference in Columbus, Ohio, the Norristown, Pennsylvania Fire Department, the West Point Military Academy in West Point, New York, the Aberdeen Proving Ground Military Facility in Aberdeen, Maryland, the Gary, Indiana Fire Department, the Wadesville Fire Department, and the Crawfordsville Fire Department. Upcoming tour stops include on August 17 to 21, it's actually not a tour stop, but I'm going to be doing some situational awareness research with the United States Forest Service and the McCall smoke jumpers in Idaho. If you followed recently in the news, you know a couple of United States Forest Service firefighters have lost their lives fighting some of the wildland fires out west. I'm going to be embedding myself with those units to try to understand more about how they make their decisions under stress and consequence and time compression. August 26th to 28th, I'll be presenting at Fire Rescue International in Atlanta, Georgia. September 10th, I will be at the National Fire Academy's Executive Fire Officer Graduate Symposium doing what they call a Chuck Chat, which is a 20-minute TEDx-inspired presentation, and my topic will be on creating the thinking firefighter. September 12th, I'll be doing a situational awareness program in Plainfield, Michigan. September 14th in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. September 23rd, I'll be at Fire Rescue Canada, the national conference sponsored by the Canadian Fire Chiefs Association. I'll be giving the closing keynote for their conference. September 26th in Delran, New Jersey. And September 28th, a presentation at the Ontario Fire College in Gravenhurst, Ontario. If you're interested in attending an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop, head over to the samatters.com website and click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage labeled Upcoming Event Schedule. Here's hoping there's a tour stop near you and we'll get a chance to meet up. If you're interested in adding your department or association to the lineup for a tour stop, contact me through the website and we'll get something set up for you. If you're not a member of the SA Matters community of learners, please consider joining. There are more than 5,000 members connected here on SA Matters, sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to train members on how to be critical thinkers and resilient problem solvers. Membership is free, and when you sign up, you'll receive a special report that I've created for the new members called 25 Best Practices for Improving First Responder Safety. If you're not a member yet, head over to SA Matters website and click on the red box on the right side of the homepage that says Free Membership. As a reminder, every episode of the radio show has corresponding show notes page on the samatters.com website. All the most recent episodes scroll on the homepage, but for the older episodes, go to samatters.com / and then enter the episode number, which is always mentioned at the start of each show. So, for example, if you wanted to access, say, episode 50, open up your internet browser, type www.samatters.com / 50, and that'll take you to the page that contains the link to that episode. The show notes page may contain additional information and resources about the episode, and depending on who the guest is and what they provide, it might also include incident scene pictures, video, and audio, and the contact information for the guest. On the show notes page, you can also ask me questions and leave your feedback about the episode. If you want to get connected with me on social media, you can follow @RichGasaway or @SAMatters on Twitter. The SA Matters Twitter community is nearly 16,000 followers strong. And for that, I thank all of you for supporting my mission on Twitter. You can also get connected on Facebook by liking the SA Matters page on Facebook, and on LinkedIn you can find me by searching Rich Gassaway on LinkedIn. Thank you to everyone who's connected with me on Facebook and LinkedIn. I really enjoy sharing the SA Matters content with you there as well. If you like the show, please consider going over to iTunes or Stitcher Radio and subscribing. Search SA Matters Radio on iTunes or Stitcher. Please consider leaving some feedback for me there as well. And if you like the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a 5-star review. Not only does that motivate me to work harder for you, but it also helps others to find the show. Well, that's it. Episode 68 is complete. Thank you to our sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to all of our live event hosts in the past and future. Thank you to our listeners for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gassaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gassaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgassaway.com.